Alright, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory be to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rokah, Kodash. And I want to say double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, the rule well. Blessings to the hopeful elect. Out there listening and learning and teaching this word in all sincerity and truth, in the hopes that we may edify and feed the lambs of Yahweh Shai, especially in these last days. You know, um, and in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with a scripture in Ephesians 5 to kick off the lesson. And the very nature of this lesson is going to be going into what I'm about to pull up on the screen, dealing with the riots over there, in LA, with these protests that that seem to be taking place, or uproars of the people as outlined in the scriptures that are taking place. Is all spiritual. At the end of the day, these ICE raids and stuff causing division in America, is all being done for a reason. And there's a reason why the elites are allowing this chaos to happen in these cities. Because of a term called Hegelian dialectic, which we've been put on, to the information of Hegelian dialectic, by our beloved elders and apostles that have been going over this for years. And also order ab chaos, order through chaos. In the sense that, these elites, they now want all out chaos to pretty much envelope these cities so that they can come forward with more draconian measures, and appeal to the tranquility, and I say that loosely, or the inner tranquility or desire of tranquility and peace for the masses in these cities, but really it's done under the guise of peace and safety, when really it's the sword that's being sharpened, and draconian measures and unrighteous decrees that are being pushed forward. Alright, and if you're not circumspect, this is Ephesians chapter 5 verse 15. It says, "See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil." So we have to walk circumspectly. The word circumspect means to look around, spectate in a circle, right? Don't be as a fool, but be as wise, and a wise individual would be redeeming the time, because the days are evil. So we're in a bad time right now. All right, we're not in a time of peace. We're in a time of war. We're in a time of civil unrest. We're in a time of division. We're in a time of the love of many waxing cold, because iniquity is abounding. We're in a time of Esau being exposed. We're in a time of more draconian measures. We're in a time of civil unrest, civil war. We're in a time of Jacob's trouble. All right, and this ICE raids and stuff, Jacob's trouble, this is just the beginning of the end. Okay, because, the Jacob's trouble is outlined in Jeremiah the 30th chapter. That's where, the nation of Israel are going to catch some serious hell, the likes of which they have never seen. The time that we're coming into is going to be a time like no other since there was a nation, like the scriptures say. So, there's things going on over there in LA right now, and this is all being done by design, and specifically LA. All right, and I believe Texas also. These are the ones to watch out for, because they even showed you in the movie Civil War that LA and Texas, they were the states that wanted to pretty much become independent. All right, which is predictive programming, and I actually have the tab up here. Civil War movie, Divided States. I just typed that in. It says, in Alex Garland's Civil War movie, the United States, which the Civil War movie, they pretty much show you, war, one people standing up to fight against another. Let me get Second Esdras, chapter 15. Okay, this one here. Second Esdras 15 and 14. It says, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh. And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands." And that's exactly, the time that we're coming to. Alright, because right now, Donald Trump has responded to these protests by sending out 2,000 National Guard troops to the front lines to pretty much quell the rioting. And they've been using tear gas and rubber bullets. But soon there's going to be a point where they ain't going to be using, soft ammo. They're going to be going in hard. All right. And I remember watching the remake of The Handmaid's Tale, the series, where they showed you protests that were getting more and more increasingly violent and hostile. And after a while, the troops were given the green light to pretty much just let off live rounds, real ammo, and bodies started dropping in the cities. Alright, now why would they put that in these shows, in these movies? They're putting it in these shows and in these movies because of predictive programming. Okay. Predictive programming. Right? AI overview, predictive programming or predictive, right? Predictive programming, right? As it's sometimes called, is a formal method for program specification and refinement. It's essentially a way of thinking about and developing software by focusing on what the program should do rather than how it should. No, this is not what I want. Here we go. So this is rationalwiki.org. Predictive programming is a recurring element across many conspiracy theories. Alright, which that's they label these conspiracy theorists as nut jobs these days. I mean, it's easy. I mean, even Dave Chappelle said it in one interview one time. He said the worst thing to call somebody is crazy, because they call conspiracy theorists crazy. Because when you call someone crazy, then you basically dismiss their opinions instantly. You don't take into consideration what they're saying because they're just nut jobs. It says the claim is that when conspirators plan a false flag operation, they hide references to it in a popular media before the atrocity takes place. And this is what they do. They put it in films, they put it in shows, right? They advertise it in their media, popular media, right, through these platforms before the actual events take place. And that's why we believe, when you watch films like London Has Fallen, Olympus Has Fallen, or Children of Men, when they showed you the concentration camps, or Years and Years, they showed you the concentration camps. In that show, they called it erstwhile sites, where people were getting transferred to these concentration camps, and there was a media blackout on those grounds. And you had checkpoint stations where you couldn't go from one place to another. Hunger Games is another one that shows you separated districts, where people can go from one place to another. Alright, which again, as we're in 2nd Ezra 15, it's going to go into that. It says, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. Alright, so people are going to be getting taken out left, right, and center. There's going to be zero fucks given, once all hell breaks loose, because, it's going to become a lawless society. Anarchy, that's what the word anarchy goes back to. Lawlessness, complete lawlessness, right? It says, for there shall be sedition among men, which means inflammatory speech, right? That's what the word sedition goes into. And invading one another, they shall not regard their kings nor princes. So people are going to be getting invaded. Houses are going to be getting invaded, ransacked. People are going to be getting taken. Women, daughters, going to be getting taken, captured, raped, like they show you in The Handmaid's Tale again. Okay, food supplies are going to be getting raided. Okay, because of the lack of let's keep reading. It says, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. So they're not going to regard their kings nor princes. They ain't going to care about the government in that day. Alright, that's when it's going to be every man for himself. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. Right? So you got people walking around, in great pride in these cities. But guess what? Because of that pride, because they believe that they can, a man can be with a man, woman with woman, they can do as thou wilt. They want to do whatever they want to do. Because of that pride, they're gonna be troubled. And this time of trouble that's coming is gonna be like the lights of which no one has ever seen before. Alright? So this is why you see these things, starting to ramp up. Okay. All right. This is fair use, fair use, fair use. This is strictly for educational purposes. All right, and I'm not making any money from this video whatsoever. Fair use, fair use, fair use. So this is Why on News. Okay. Los Angeles protest. Trump leaves door open for troops deployment in other cities. All right, so they ain't just look, man. This could be, and it's funny because on the way to camp on Saturday, I actually saw a military vehicle, and it looked like it was carrying a big ass gun, right? At the back of it, some big ass lorry is carrying a big ass like cannon looking thing, and I said to myself, man, we're in that time. And as I saw that, a few hours later, did I hear about the National Guard being deployed in LA? So I said, look, that's the signs of the times. Again, that's why we got to walk circumspectly. And this is all in response to the ICE raids, the immigration raids, So you got people saying fuck ICE, they're the graffiti on the walls and that and whatever, they're taking to the streets. But you see the National Guard out there, okay, standing their ground, basically shooting tear gas at the people.
Already on the ground.
Masked up, hooded up, not revealing their identities. I mean, this is all being done by design. Alright, and remember, they control both sides, okay, which I remember Elder Apostle Gabar going into, the documentary, the Capitalist Conspiracy by G. Edward Griffin, alright, which they go into problem, reaction, solution, alright, in this this clip that I'm about to show you from the Capitalist Conspiracy. This is a part of being circumspect. This is about, Esau being revealed. Alright, and we have to do that, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Right? So let's play you a little bit of this clip here.
If those who seek world dominion can stimulate leftist mobs into violent confrontation with local law enforcement, and also provide exhaustive news coverage so that the entire nation can see and tremble, then the peaceful and freedom-loving majority can be programmed to accept a vast expansion of government powers.
Did you hear that? It says, let me go back, let me take it back.
Down in his book, offer only those solutions that result. It's the strategy of world government to a people like ours, historically devoted to an independent republic of limited powers. The answer is simple.
Right, the answer is simple, so pay attention.
In revolutionary literature, the tactic is known as pressure from above and below.
Pressure from above and below. And you can see, this diagram that's on the screen here. They got the solutions, and they got the arrow pointing downwards. And then they got the problem beneath that, the arrow pointing upwards. Alright, and then the only way out is for the people that's getting squeezed in the middle to run to the government. That's going to be the only way out, which the word government means to control the mind. Okay, you got the word govern, which means control. Alright, and meant going back to the mind. Okay, so this pressure from above and pressure from below, this is what we mean when they say that they control both sides. Because I remember you had George Soros, even with the whole BLM movement, he was behind all of that. He funded that whole BLM thing, and even before some of these protests and these riots took place, conveniently, there were bricks that were laid up in the streets, for these rioters to pick up and smash and loot stores. Alright, so these things are set up. Now some of these people that are joining these riots, they might actually be sincere in their frustrations, alright, or their reaction to the oppression of the wicked. Okay, but at the same time, you've got agents that are amongst these crowds that are pretty much set up to rouse up the people, and to get them to do things that plays right into the hands of the formula known as order web chaos, order through chaos. Alright, playing into the hands of the elite, because they need these people to go buck wild so that they can come out with their draconian measures. Alright, so let's not get it twisted. They need chaos in order to come forth with the solution. Okay, This is 2 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 11. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Satan means adversary. Okay, and the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan, that's the wicked that the Bible speaks of. Okay, so we're not to be ignorant of his devices that he's got floating around out here. So let's go back into this documentary here.
It's the strategy that Colonel House laid down in his book, Philip Drew, Administrator. Deliberately create problems.
So this is what they do. They deliberately create problems.
And then offer only those solutions that result in the expansion.
And only offer those solutions that result in the expansion of government, of mind control. Alright, because they're going to beat people to their knees. They're going to beat the masses to their knees. When all hell breaks loose, their people are going to be begging for stability and tranquility. Listen.
Create conditions so frightful at home and abroad.
Create conditions so frightful at home and abroad
that the abandonment of personal liberties and national sovereignty will appear as a reasonable price for a return.
So, pretty much sacrificing your national sovereignty and your personal liberties, right? And that would seem as a reasonable price for a return to what?
To domestic tranquility and world peace.
Right? To the illusion of domestic tranquility and world peace. Because really, they're going to have complete control. Because the ultimate domestic tranquility and world peace that they're going to present to you is going to be through that chip. Alright? Because once they start chipping people out here, they're going to have total control. There's not going to be no need, right, for them to be going back and forth with people like this. Now you are going to have, like they show you in Demolition Man, people are going to be off the grid and that and whatever, but the scripture says that they're going to be like madmen sparing none, and they're going to be grabbing people up out of their homes real soon and putting them in these detention centers. Alright, and guess what? The masses of the people are going to be all for it, because they desperately going to want that tranquility and world peace that's being presented to them as peace. And you know what the scripture says? When they shall say peace. Alright, let's get 1 Thessalonians 5:3. Right, it says, for when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. So when people are saying peace and safety out here, and that's pretty much being blissfully ignorant. You walking around your day to day doing your tasks and that and whatever, not realizing that they got things planned, that the sword is being sharpened, that concentration camps are about to be filled up. They got concentration camps that are being built and underground. Alright, where they got these little air vents that they've set out coming out of the ground because they need ventilation to go underground, because that's where they're going to be keeping people. Alright, and you know what shows you that? Another documentary by Linda Thompson, right? That documentary called America Under Siege. I remember Elder Apostle Gabar going into that years ago as well. Pretty much advising that we watch videos like that. Capitalist Conspiracy by G. Edward Griffin and Linda Thompson, America Under Siege, and there's many, many more that you can go into that outline, the plans of the wicked elite. Alright, and when we say the wicked, we're talking about Esau, Edom. The earth has been given into their hand, Job 9:24. Alright, and if you want to know who the wicked is, just go to Malachi 1:4. Esau, Edom. They are known as the borders of wickedness. So this is their plan, their ordo ab chaos. It says, but ye brethren, right, are not in darkness. Yeah, we're not in that peace and safety spirit. We're not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. Because the day of the Lord is not going to overtake us as a thief, because we're looking for the day. We're looking for things to get worse. We're looking for the day of the Lord. And we know that the return of Yahweh Shai, right, coming to set up his kingdom on the earth, is going to come with violence. The scripture says, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Alright, so the elites, they have their plans, but guess what? The scriptures speak about when they're about to fill their belly, the Most High shall cast the fury of his wrath upon them. Okay, so when they get their chip rolling out, people start getting chipped, guillotines, concentration camps, and they start, people start begging the government for them to intervene, right, so that they can present them an illusion of tranquility and world peace at the expense of their own freedoms. Then they're going to realize that there's a price to pay, and that's for you to have that chip and to give up your complete freedoms, and they're going to have complete control over you. And that's why we go into the mark of the beast, because that mark of the beast is a major prophecy that we're waiting for to slot in to biblical prophecy here to play out. That's what we're waiting for. All right, and that's Esau. His ultimate device is that chip. Okay, it says, "Ye are the children of the light and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober." That's why the scripture says, "Ye that make mention of the Lord, we're not to keep silent, right? Till he, and give him no rest till he establish and make Jerusalem a praise in the earth." So, we got to be sober minded. Let us watch and be sober. Don't be drunk and staggering over with all these false philosophies and being blissfully ignorant. No, be sober, be watchful, keep your eyes open, stay circumspect. Spectate what's going on around you. Okay? So again, going back to this which I ain't gonna play no more of this. I just wanted to, go into this breakdown of this problem, reaction, solution, and how the people are gonna be, begging for Big Daddy government to come and save the day. So they've got this all planned out. All right, and this riot situation that you see happening right here, this is all a part of biblical prophecy, man. They got flashbangs going off, they got rubber bullets being shot, they got tear gas, and you got these rioters out here, pretty much tattooing graffiti, "Fuck Trump, fuck ICE," and this is Esau's kingdom being divided. That's another reason why we know that this kingdom's on its way out. Right? Satan's kingdom divided, that kingdom shall not stand. The Lord said that he will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians. All right, and no wonder why this is happening in LA, because like I said, through predictive programming, they did put in the movie Civil War, the states were divided. In Alex Garland's movie Civil War movie, the United States is divided into 4 major factions: the Loyalists, the Western Forces, the Florida Alliance, and the New People's Army. The Western Forces are comprised of California and Texas. California, the first one mentioned, and where's the riots happening right now? In California, right? It says, "and Texas, who have seceded from the Union in response to an authoritarian president." The Florida Alliance includes states like Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, and other southern states. That the New People's Army is a group of northwestern states, including Washington, Oregon, Montana, and others. So this is the Loyalist represents the state that remain aligned with the U.S. government. So this is outlining in the movie that America is divided, and no kingdom divided. Let's get that scripture. Divided. Let's see if we can get this one real quick. This is Luke chapter 11, verse 18. It says, well, let's start from 17. "But he, knowing their thoughts, said unto them, Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and a house divided against a house falleth." Right? So this man's house is divided, and it's going to fall, because the Lord said so. Any kingdom that's divided, right, is doomed for failure. If Satan also be divided against himself, how shall his kingdom stand? Now you got this situation with Trump and Elon Musk. Now all of a sudden they're going head to head, publicly tweeting back and forth or on social media platforms, going at each other. One saying that Trump's a part of Epstein files, and that was removed from, that was on X or whatever. And all of a sudden, they went from best buddies to being, at odds. Okay, you got the Republicans going up against the Democrats. That's division right there. All right, and in fact, you had that bill that's that's being passed right now about the reducing the governmental aid or SNAP packages or food stamp packages, aid that's being given to these single parent households, single mothers in particular. Right, they're reducing the aid, for children of 8 or the ages from 18 down to 7. All right, and you got the Democratic Party. They're pretty much in an uproar about what Trump's doing. So that's even more division in itself. So you're gonna have class riots. You're gonna have people in a divide over the immigration crisis. You're gonna have people, in a divide over race. Over areas, over thought patterns, belief patterns. You're gonna have divisions on every front. And when those divisions start bubbling up and come to a head, then you're going to see this house really divided, and you're going to see it really come crashing down. But again, this is exactly what they want. They want people divided. Oh, religious riots, religious divides. All right, which again, they showed you that in the Children of Men. Okay, the Christians against the Muslims, and so on and so forth. Let's not forget about Albert Pike's letter to Mazzini, I believe it was, for free world wars, the plan for free world wars. Right, which was he was a part of the Illuminati too, and he used to walk around with a ring, all right, where he could summon the spiritual demon Satan, so that was nothing but a warlock. See, these guys are a bunch of witches and warlocks, man. But this man's kingdom is divided, and that's the point, right? How shall his kingdom stand? Right, so the roots of this man's kingdom is rooted in bloodshed and witchcraft, and now, the ultimate witchcraft is them to push out that chip and have the people completely controlled, because that's going to be mind altering, and all they're going to have to do is connect you to the grid, and they're going to be able to control your ass. So you can't tell me that that's not witchcraft. Okay. So let's go back to Second Ezra's, where we was in Second Ezra's 15 and 18 now. It says, for because of their pride the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. So there's going to be a shortage of food out here. And even in the next chapter over, it goes on to say that, because victuals shall be good cheap upon the earth. Let's get that in verse 21 in 2 Ezra 16. Behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case. Even then shall evils grow upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. Alright, and these victuals is talking about your food, your provisions that you have from day to day, food in the cupboards, to feed your family, food in the fridge, food in the freezer, even then all these things are building great confusion, sword, famine, and the sword is being sharpened. That's in Ezekiel 21 and 9. But I'm going to revisit this lesson, Lord willing, because I want to go deeper into this subject at some point in time. And Lord willing, I'll revisit it this week. But yeah, it's definitely going down. This Ordo ab Chao, this is exactly what they want. Alright. But this man's kingdom being divided, the uproars of the people. Let's close out with that scripture, 2 Ezra 9. 2 Ezra chapter 9. Right? It says 2 Ezra chapter 9 verse 1, he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs pass, which I have told thee before, right, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. So we're in that time where the Lord is making his grand return. Alright, and when he comes back, he's going to strike through kings in the day of his wrath, outlined in Psalms. I believe it's Psalms 110. He's going to strike through kings in the day of his wrath. It says, therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, Trump warns of troops everywhere, security forces, tear gas, flash grenades to disperse protesters. These are uproars of the people, right? This is all part of biblical prophecy. When you shall see these things, then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. Alright, so when you see these things happening, and you can't tell us that this ain't Rome, I'm going to say like Elder Ramar says, Rome 3.0. You can't tell us that this ain't the deadly wound being healed, right? This is, Rome, this is Rome being healed. Okay? We're definitely in that time. Alright, and they're about to start swinging that sword. You got people with their hands up and shit, but soon People are gonna be running from for their lives. There's gonna be dead bodies all over these streets. All right, because you ain't gonna be able to bargain with these guys. And let's not forget, they got these robots out here. You ain't gonna be able to bargain with their AI machines and their robots, man. Super soldiers and so on and so forth. When they're given the green light to just start exterminating protesters, all right, or they label you as terrorists. And not only that, you know, they got these AI bills passing and that and whatever. Governor Newsom, you know, involved with all that AI stuff as well. With this whole Trump and Elon Musk thing, you know, Elon's big on AI. And what did Elon Musk say about AI? He said, we're summoning the demon. All right, which the word demon means intelligence, man. So you got these intelligent systems that are going to be rolled out, you know, start scanning people's faces, start putting people to death. You know, it's going to go down. All right, it's going down. All right, so with that, man, I pray you were edified. Like I said, Lord willing, we'll revisit this topic, right? You know, the topic of Jacob's trouble. So with that, man, shalom.